quorum. So can you lay the background? I sent out the June actuals to date, but can you tell us where the revenue picture stands in relationship to expenditures?
So far, revenue is 97%. We're on real estate collections where we think they would be.
Yeah.
Everything else seems to be in line. So
97% represents what roughly in dollars? I mean,
what's $7 million at 97? But there's one quarter still to go. We know that's
Okay.
that's the May quarter.
all right. So if we maintain that 97%, even in the last quarter, we've got enough flexibility in the budget to grab money to cover that 3%? Or you're looking at free cash?
No, I think we're okay. I think we've got enough there to cover the 3% because of the it depends on how many abatements come in.
Okay,
That affects that. And the motor vehicle excise is really the one that I'm concerned most with.
right, you mentioned that a lot, so, okay. All right, I was looking at the,
Ron, can I just interrupt if you could just call the meeting to order and?
oh, I'm sorry, okay. Yeah, okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The purpose of the meeting is to review the articles for the special town meeting, to understand the rationale behind them, discuss them, see if everybody's in favor of them, or maybe modify some of those or ask questions, so.
If you can just do a roll call vote to who's present.
Okay, I saw Nancy, so Nancy,
Here.
okay, Jamie,
He's on mute. He raised his hand.
okay. And don't see Joe yet.
Joe's here.
I'm here. Joe
Oh,
Oliver's
Joe's
here.
there. Okay, hi, Joe. Yeah, I saw Martin was here.
Marty. Yep.
Marty, okay, all right. So we're all, and Ron Putnam, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay. I was looking at the January actuals to date, Brian. The one that jumped out at me was the fire department. Specifically, the on-call and overtime hours seems to still be exceeding the budget, even though we've increased it a couple years in a row.
Sure. So some of that is the CARES Act and the FEMA money. So they've covered some of that overtime and some of their stuff, but that money hasn't come in. We won't reclassify those until the CARES money and the FEMA money's been received. And then Julie, the town accountant, will do an allocation, moving some of those funds around. So until that's done, we won't really know a true picture of where we are.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll discuss. There's a fire article there. That was about all that I had. Does anybody else have any questions on the actuals to date that I sent out?
I had the same question as you, Ron. We've had this conversation for what feels like 7 years in a row from the time I've joined, that the fire department has run over nearly every year. We added staff, we changed schedules, we increased overtime. I just feel like it's Groundhog Day every single year.
Yeah. I guess I understand your words, Brian, on the allocation of the CARES money, but I mean, even if that's allocated, have we bound this budget? Are we finally, we allocated enough money there to cover it for the year or not?
I don't think so, to tell you the truth. I think that line item needs to be closer to 60 to 65,000.
Okay.
There's
And nothing
money-
has, okay, go ahead, sorry.
I believe there's money within that we may transfer, but we'll deal with that when we do the year-end transfers. But the FY22 budget, I'm probably going to allocate that to around 62,000 to
Okay,
hopefully prevent this. I talked to Fire Chief this morning regarding that.
okay. All right, any other questions on the actuals to date for January
None here.
by anyone? Okay, why don't we start in with the first article for the town meeting? Transfer of funds from the water account.
Sure. So what that is, in October 10th of 2018, the joint water commissions had a conversation regarding a software grade that needed to be done at the plant in order to maintain what it can do. So they authorized it to be done. And the plan was, according to the minutes, that they were going to go to town meeting to transfer the money from retained earnings. Well, they authorized the expense, but it never made the town meeting to transfer the funds. So this will transfer the funds from retained earnings to pay for that. What it prevents is running that into a deficit. If that account runs into a deficit, DOR is going to DOR would keep an eye on that, and they would see that that's running in a deficit and start asking questions and being concerned.
Okay. All right, I understand that. Any questions on the first article from the board on the?
Yeah, I said, yeah, where'd that be the ball?
Hey, so that's half of the cost?
That's half of the cost. That's correct.
Okay, so because we split the other half with Winchendon. Okay.
Yeah.
That is correct.
All right. Okay, second one is health insurance.
Sure. So we've seen a migration to our health plans. Obviously, my thought is that because of COVID, either they're lost their job and they've jumped on the other qualifying event to get on our plans, or their company has paid them to get off their plan and they've jumped on ours at the enrollment time and qualified. So that's to cover a potential shortfall.
Okay, I noticed we're about 60% there on that variance for that item. So it's 73,000, that's about, that's 10% of the allocated 684.
Hey, Brian, before we get too further in, can you give us a quick summary of free cash, where we stand, what the total balance is, and what we're trying to debit here?
Sure, I can, let's go through that. So we had 1.2 million in free cash, okay? In May 7th in 2019, there was an article to transfer $90,000 to stabilization. That bookkeeping adjustment was never done. So we lose $90,000 of free cash, not lose it, but it goes to the stabilization account, which is a nice thing, but it doesn't allow us to spend it. So that brings us roughly to 1.120. So then the health benefits, I'm going to use 73,000. The Article 3, the town public safety building, I'm going to use 16,825. Article 4 is a police unmarked vehicle, that's 60,000. Article 6 is town library building, that's $8,400. Article 7 is school capital for FY21. That's $88,756. I'll discuss more of that when we get to that article. Article 8 is highway repair and maintenance. That's for the paving plan. That's $415,958. Article 9 is highway repair and maintenance. That's for the 101 engineering cost. There's an increase there. That's $72,000. And then Article 10 is account professional services. That's a contract that was just modified, and that's $10,000. So all of those items will reduce it by $834,000, leaving $375,000 in free cash. Now that sounds good. However, the one item that you won't see on here that is going to have to be deducted from free cash is snow and ice. So I'm projecting snow and ice of $175,000. That leaves us with $200,000 of free cash to cover revenue shortfalls or roll forward to next year's free cash. I know that's a lot, Jill. So
No, it's good. I just, and unfortunately, I didn't have the time to look it up, but it was a couple years ago. Maybe Ron or Bill or someone can remember what we did, or someone from the board like Jamie who was around. We took money out of stabilization to pay for a shortfall in the budget.
Right.
And there was a lot of resistance among, fellow taxpayers here in the town to do that. And the promise was made at the time that when we had free cash, we would replenish those monies from where we took them. And I just I don't have that figure off the top of my head. I'm sorry I didn't prepare, but it's always been in the back of my mind that we never took care of that.
I know last year we covered it. We covered a couple of the shortfalls for the accountant, for town administrator, and we replenished those funds in last year's special town meeting. So I'm not aware of any others that I'm aware of that need to be replenished, but if there's some out there, I'm more than happy to make good on those.
Joe, we might as well talk about this now because I added up all the transfers from free cash myself. It's my belief that fiscal year 22 is going to be just as tight as this year. That's why I was asking about where the revenues stand right now, because I don't think there are going to be many more people going back to work in the summer, maybe the fall. So originally I was going to push to put some of the unallocated free cash into stabilization. But after talking to Brian, I'm sort of the mind now, and maybe we should just wait this year to see if we've got a shortfall to cover. And then we can put some in, I don't know, maybe late next spring if we have to.
So for Mike, the $90,000 that they have in the operating stabilization, that's covering one of the transfers from back in the day, I believe. That's a 2019, May 7th, 2019 article that was passed that way.
Yeah, that was one. I think we did another one in an October fall meeting. Just don't, again, I
And
just
we
don't have
did
that
too.
figure handy. Remember what that was, Ron?
Not off the top of my head. I have to go through my books. I've got it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, but I hear you. You want to wait and see how this year shakes out before we address that. But I feel like we've said that now for 2 years. So we can't lose sight of it.
No, I totally understand. In fact, there's some articles in here I'm going to ask, and I'm glad Steve and Larry are up. I'm going to ask whether they're really critical or essential that we do them now or maybe push them off a year, and what the impact of those are. But anyway, okay, I understand the health benefit increase. Anything else on the increase to the health insurance? That's sort of what it is. It is what it is. Okay, public safety building is next for HVAC.
Sure. So there's a controller over there that is now obsolete. It's no longer covered from the manufacturer. So in order to do an upgrade to that system to make it compliant, we need to change out that controller. Right now, the energy efficiency isn't running properly over there. It's running a lot more than it has to. So we need to get that fixed to save energy cost also.
Okay. And there isn't a normal maintenance budget for that building that would come out of?
Not that type of amount, no.
Not that amount? That was my only question on that one.
Larry, am I missing anything or did I cover it?
So there's basically two things here. We have a controller that's not working and it's bypassed and it's running constantly 24/7. So that's affecting the energy, the efficiency of the energy right now. The other thing that we have is the software for the program to run all of the HVAC will no longer be supported by Microsoft Office and the software company. So instead of doing these as two different options, in other words, trying to do one now and one in July, it would cost us more money to have them out there twice.
Yeah.
So we want to try to do them all at once and number one, get the ultimate performance out of the unit. And obviously we don't want to have the system go down, which would affect the entire department, both police, fire, and dispatch as far as the system in the building. So it's a software issue and it's a mechanical issue.
Okay, and this covers both, Larry?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It didn't pick up the software part, but okay.
Is that a Honeywell? Is that Honeywell?
It's Johnson Controls. I don't know if it's the actual brand of the controller is Honeywell. I'm not a real big HVAC guy.
Johnson Controls is Johnson Controls. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's that from 2008? Was that when it was built?
Yeah, this is really the first big problem that we've had with the HVAC. we've had a lot of little things, and yeah, we do have a maintenance contract that they come in twice a year and take care of everything. But this, the building's, 2008. So what's that? 13 years old. And, this is a building that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, when you kind of compare that like to the town hall or so, you're talking really 22 years of service on it when it's running 24/7 or longer. So, we've done pretty well with it. We've maintained it. We try to keep the building, operating at its best performance, but things like this are going to happen. And we're probably going to see more and more of these things starting to happen, not with just the HVAC thing issue, but other things as the building starts to age.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. That's how they make their money. Systems go obsolete. You can't buy parts anymore.
Right.
Right.
Okay, I understand that. Any questions from anybody? Okay, moving on to the accountant services.
You want to go to number 4? You want to take them in order or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I jumped the whole page. Hold on, all my pages are out of order. Okay, let's go with 4 first. All right, the police vehicle. Let's talk about that. Could you tell me the impact of not changing this vehicle out this year? If we're trying to hold all the expenses down, what would happen if we moved it out 1 year?
A few things. Number one, we're already, by the time we actually take possession of this vehicle, it's going to be a year out. It's not something that if this gets approved in 2 weeks, that I'm going to have that vehicle in service in 2 months. It's going to be probably 3 or 4 months out before that vehicle is actually in service. So we're running into a situation with our cruisers because not only are we dealing with this vehicle, but we're also held off purchasing the Mach Cruiser for this year that's in my operating budget. And that's causing a mechanical issue with our cruisers. I'll give you an example. We had one of our Mach cars go down in the fall, and it was out of service for 8 weeks. And that caused a major problem. We were waiting for a rear end actually to come in from Ford. The good news is that the car was still under warranty. It was under the 100,000 mile mark. So it didn't cost us anything per se as far as the cost to fix that vehicle. But what it did do is it put mileages on our other 3 Mach cars. So it kind of takes us out of this plan that we have that we've actually had in place now for better than 12 years. And it's the rotation. We're able to keep a smaller fleet because we have a timetable and a plan to get rid of those vehicles before they start costing us a lot of money. And we're starting to get in a situation with 2 of our vehicles right now, this vehicle and the Mach car, that it's actually starting to cost us more money. The Mach car that we have that's due to be replaced, it will be off warranty within the next month. It's going to be over the 100,000 mile mark. So anything that goes wrong with that vehicle, the job that happened where it was out of service for 8 weeks was almost $1,000 job. So I don't budget a lot of money in our cruiser maintenance. If you really take a look at that number hasn't really grown in the last 12 or 13 years since we put this plan in place. We try to, maintain our vehicles, the oil changes, the brakes and those type of things. Everything else is more or less on warranty. If a water pump goes, some repairs with the engine system, rear end, front end. So what we're starting to get into now is a situation where those vehicles are off a warranty or going to be very shortly off a warranty. And, so it's one of those things where you either pay now or you pay later. And I mean, we utilize our vehicles in a very stringent way. They're not abused. They're emergency vehicles. They're not driven like, most people drive their own vehicles to and from the grocery store to work. But for emergency vehicles, I think we have one of the better maintained and up fleet in the area. But what we've been able to do because of that is we've been able to keep our fleet smaller. If you look at the fleet that the Ashburnham Police Department has to similar towns around us that are about the same size, we're 2 or 3 vehicles less than what those towns have. And we're able to do that because we take care of our cars, but we're starting to run into situations where our cars are out of service more. And we got situations where officers are in need of vehicles that we just don't have sitting on the lot anymore. So in some cases, we have to double officers up in a cruiser, which is not good. And in some places, we just don't have a cruiser for them to use. So, I would err caution of getting away from this plan that we've used for the last 12 or 13 years. I think it's worked very well for us. I think it's saved us money. We get more money for our vehicles when we trade them in. It offsets the repairs that we don't have because of that. And when you start getting these cruises up over 100,000 miles, it's not the 100,000 miles that's on your personal vehicle or my personal vehicle. It's 100,000 miles that's on an emergency vehicle that has a lot of idle time, and they're driven in a lot different type of situations in all types of weather. So, that's kind of where we are with the situation. Anything we put off, it puts everything else off. And it's just going to create a domino effect that I think is going to be very problematic.
Larry, just help me understand, did you say that we put something off last year because of the budget conditions that you would have normally done?
Well, both of these vehicles should have been bought in the first quarter of this year.
Right.
So we have the money sitting in my operating budget for the mock car, but because of the current situation with talking with Brian, we're holding off on that right now. We're hopefully once we get a clearer picture of the budget coming into the next quarter with revenues from excise tax, we're hoping to, I'm hoping that Brian's going to release that and we're going to be able to do that.
And that'll get you back on the 12-year plan, so to speak.
Yes, with a little bit of a delay and hopefully without any problems in the next 4 or 5 months. I'm starting to hear, talking with the folks that we buy our cruises from, is that it's getting harder and harder to get a car. And I guess I don't really understand this that much, but what they're telling me from the dealerships is that there's a lack of computer chips for cruises, not just for cruises, any type of vehicle. I thought it was just the GMs, but now I'm hearing from Ford's, talking with some of the sales folks today, actually. And there's going to be a delay in getting some of these vehicles. And we're not the only community in the same place where we're holding off buying cruises. So the other dilemma that I have to deal with is when we finally say, yeah, we're going to get this vehicle. Now I got how many other towns in front of me that I'm waiting to get this car built. So I'm being told by both Chevy and Ford, depending on which way we go, that I'm looking at anywhere from 3 months to 6 months before I see one of these vehicles land on our lot or thereabouts. And that's if I ordered it now.
So if I might just jump in for a brief second. So if this passes, I've allowed Larry to order either the marked cruiser or the unmarked, whichever one he thinks he needs the most. Obviously, you can see we're leaning towards the marked cruiser. He's going to order that once this passes. If it passes, I'm going to give him the okay to release that. I'm not going to allow him to release the one he doesn't until after the excise collections come in. The other thing on this car is it's a hybrid car. We have $5,000 for the hybrid, which covers the difference of the cost. We want to test the hybrids out to see how they work on an unmarked cruiser before we start moving hybrids into the regular fleet. So that's the other point of why we want to do this now. And we have a grant for $5,000 to cover that. If we don't use it, that grant might not be available down the road.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions.
I don't either. Anybody else have any questions?
Ron, I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
I should have asked this at my last meeting, but I didn't. Either Larry or Brian, how old is this cruiser that we're replacing, this unmarked car?
It is going on 11 years, 10 or 11 years. 2012 we got the car, so it'll be 10 years.
So again, just in support of what you're saying, this isn't a car that's in the normal rotation. This is outside of that. And it's got twice as many years on it as almost 3 times as many years. as
Correct.
we've
So
already
basically,
expected.
we have two plans within our one plan. We have the mock cars, which basically we get about anywhere between 4 and 4.5 years out of a mock car. We have 4 mock cars. So they're in rotation all the time. Their officers are assigned, specific officers are assigned to a specific mock car. So that's our mock car fleet. The way, and when we get anywhere around 4 to maybe even as much as 5 years on those, depending on where we are and, how they're utilized and, depending on the mileage and everything, all of that. But we optimize, we try to get as much as we can out of those. Our unmarked, which we have 3, and those are on a different type of a rotation. That there's the chief's cruiser, the lieutenant's cruiser, and then we have a detective's vehicle / we utilize it for a lot of different things. And the way that we do the unmarked cars is I probably put the most miles on a car between my job, again, I patrol, I go out, I answer calls. So when we get a new one, my car goes down to the lieutenant's car goes down to the detective, and that's how we stretch as much as we can out of the unmarked vehicles. So the unmarked vehicle that we're replacing is the oldest unmarked, obviously. It's almost 12 years old, almost 10 years old, sorry. And we get better than twice the life out of an unmarked than we do a marked car. And right now that car's got about 110,000, 115,000 miles on it right now. Probably be a little over that by the time this vehicle comes in and we trade it in. That vehicle is used by the detective. We use it for going back and forth to court, going to trainings. Our dispatchers will use it if they're going to training. So once it gets down to that point, it's almost time to put that one to bed, and that's kind of where we are with it. But that's how we kind of do our fleet rotation, just in order to get the most out of the vehicles that we have.
Anything else, Bill? Okay.
Hey, how does that grant work thing? The $5,000, is that coming from the state?
Correct. It's an
Okay.
energy grant that we got.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Okay, why don't we move to 5, the grant on the ladder truck?
Sure. So that's a 5% grant for a ladder truck. So we've put in the money for the grant. It's $950,000. This is the town's portion of that $950,000. I don't like applying for grants that have matching funds unless we identify the source. So this is allocating where those monies are going to come from if we happen to get it. And if we don't get it, my thought is, we reallocate these monies to a, lease payment or a loan payment or something, because eventually we have to replace that truck, unfortunately. But right now, I'm hoping that, the grant comes through and this is what it costs us to get the truck.
So in layman's terms, that $48,000 is set aside if we get the grant, but if we don't get the grant, then it rolls back into free cash, I assume?
Well, it would be, I think we'd have to reallocate it, I believe.
Okay,
Well, we'd have to go to, town meeting and reallocate it towards whatever purchase or loan, or allocate it out to free cash, correct?
gotcha. Okay.
Brian, on this particular vehicle, why don't we depend on mutual aid versus buying a whole ladder truck? And what does this ladder truck serve? How many buildings in town?
Well, unfortunately, fire chief's not on. I talked to him this morning. I thought he'd be on. So obviously something's come up. They called Gardner 3 times this weekend. Eventually Gardner, they've been assisting us, but they're not supposed to be a replacement for our vehicle. They're supposed to be mutual aid. When it's something above and beyond, mutual aid comes in. It's not meant to be a reliant that, hey, we're using your truck.
Well, okay, look at the whole fire department budget. Again, overtime, on-call, it's just pushing the budget. Who's gonna man this ladder truck? We're gonna need more people?
No.
What?
No, it's just a different apparatus that they would get on to go to a certain type of fire or call. especially Cushing with the buildings they have over there now. You know, ladder truck is definitely a need. But I wish Bob was on, he could answer your thing. He was supposed to be on, so I'm surprised.
What about going to Cushing for this 48,000? I mean, personally, I don't see the ladder truck. I'm sorry, but I don't. And I just don't know where the ladder truck will be used in town, other than the tall dorms at Cushing. And I don't know how they got approval for something that, can we reach those dorms now with our current apparatus?
There's other buildings in town. You know, I drive the old historic, you know, Russell Hill Road on the way home. There's some big houses out there with chimneys on top that definitely would need a ladder truck probably to get to. No, it's not just Cushing. There are other places in town that need that service.
Where's it going to be kept?
In the station.
There's
Well, if
got
that
no
one comes in, I'm gonna we'll dispose of the ladder truck that's there. You have to have a ladder truck in order to apply for the grant. So this is probably the last time we're gonna be able to apply for the grant because we need to do something. So the ladder truck's gonna be removed. I think there's a couple other older trucks over there that we're gonna remove and it'll fit.
How old is the ladder truck we have?
Very old. I don't
Oh,
know.
it's not in service, is it?
It's not even in service.
Right.
Oh.
Not a
It
service.
hasn't
think it
been in
runs on-
service.
I think it runs on coal, Marty.
The other thing too, if I could just add, is that we bought that ladder truck used. It was not a new piece of apparatus, and we'd invested some money in it some years ago to, do some extensive repairs on it that would carry it forward into service. And we have not gotten the life expectancy out of that. Now it won't pass the certification test, so it's in the backyard collecting snow.
So it's clear to me now what the article was. I guess before I didn't fully understand, but now I see it's just our piece of the puzzle here is much smaller than the grant. So maybe in that sense, Ron, it's money worth spending because we're getting 95% of the costs paid for if we get the grant.
Well, then you got to maintain it. You got to staff it. That's going to push the fire budget.
Well, Ron, let me just throw one other thing out to you. And I've spoken to Brian about this on a number of occasions, and he's kind of alluded to it as he offered up an explanation. So we need to, and we're going to take a comprehensive look at apparatus at the fire department and decide what we need and what we don't need. So as you go through different chiefs over the years, everybody's got a plan, and their plan is, it's got to be this, this, and this. And in some cases, I don't think those plans were well thought out. So I think it's inevitable that we have to get this piece of apparatus, but do we need to keep everything else that we have? So with Brian, the fire chief, and other folks, I think we're going to have to take a hard look at it and say, what do we really need to staff this station apparatus wise so we can move forward? And then that's the plan we'll have, and we'll have to execute it.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Any other questions on the ladder truck?
The fire chief will be joining us. He thought it was at 7.
Oh, good.
Great,
Okay,
we can
well,
rehash it at 7.
yeah, we can come back around to that.
We're good.
Well, in light of that, there's another 30 minutes. I don't know. Why don't we go on then to the town building library and their elevator?
Sure. So I was notified by Terry at the library that the library doors, the sensors to the elevator and the control panel aren't working properly. Fortunately, right now, we're not open to the public. So, the people there are accustomed to the problem, but if we open to the public, we can have issues. The door closes unexpectedly as you're like walking in. So there's some issues there. So we need to have that fixed and upgraded. And it's $8,400 for that.
Yeah. Safety issue. Yeah.
Correct. It's a safety issue.
Okay. Any other further questions on that one?
Ron, I have a little update.
Yeah.
The ladder truck was 1983. That's the year of it.
83. Okay. All right. Okay. School capital, $88,756.
Well, I sent an email to the school month and a half, 2 months ago, asking about the bus contract. So when they did the bus contract, we had motor vehicle excise coming in, and it was around $16,000. They didn't reply to me. So the original school capital budget is $105,210. So I took $16,454 off it, which was the average excise we were collecting. So I put in the budget to transfer $88,756. So I talked to the school on, well, actually went over to the school on Wednesday and talked to Todd and Julie over there and discussed my thought was pull it out of excess and deficiency money because you're sitting on 600,000. Unfortunately, the way mass law works, if they were to give me 16,454, they would have to give as much, if not more, to Westminster. So that doesn't quite make sense to me to do it that way. So right now I'm putting in 88,756, hopeful that there was a way that they could get 16,000 to us, but it doesn't look like the way the laws work and the rules work, that's going to be allowed. So two things we can do. I have no problem with the 88,756, letting it go through at that. Or if it gets modified to the 105,210 and I pull $16,000 more out of free cash, fine. If not, I'll deal with the 16,454 at annual town meeting. I don't have a problem either way.
Okay. I noticed on the actuals, the January actuals, they still have $82,000 unexpended. Is this like a rolling forward wave we got going?
Well, I think some of it is because how, like Westminster funds it right away. We don't fund it till much later. So they don't spend our allotment of funds until after. So a lot of their stuff is they're playing catch up on the capital with our money.
Okay. Jamie, you have all the figures on capital budgets. What's it looking like after this year if we got 105,000?
Unmute. Hold on. Next year, they're projecting 101,391. The year after that, which is 22-23, is 90,361. 23-24 is 112,958. And then 24-25 jumps way up to 264, but we have to, that's 5 years out. There's some stuff in there, but it's around 100,000, give or take. And that's something we said, a few years ago that we could probably have 100,000 for their capital plan,
Yeah, I know.
but, and if it goes, like the 264, that would have to be, an override or some
Right.
other kind of thing when we get out there. But they've tried to stay around that number for us, 101, 90, 112. So that's basically where they are.
Okay. I was just curious. I know it's been up around 90. So, okay.
And I asked them if any of the CARES money was used to offset. Go ahead, Jamie, sorry.
No, I'm saying we've just tried to keep them, at that number and not go crazy.
Right.
So I asked them if they used any of the CARE money to offset some of their capital, and they weren't able to. So that's kind of what is one of my other questions. Hopefully they could use capital to offset computer costs during COVID, but they weren't able to do that.
Okay. Any questions on the school capital funds from anyone?
I've just got one thing for you, Ron, and I've been off and on capital for a few years, but if you remember back when we originally put capital together, we were working on about a $450,000 annual expenditure on capital.
Mhm.
The last couple of years, we all know we haven't been able to do that. But when we made the commitment to the school, again, around $100,000, we've not come up with a way to put any increased funding in that $450,000 number that we started with. So
Right.
essentially what we did was we said, okay, we're going to take $100,000 of capital expenditures for the town of Ashburnham, and we're going to switch it to the schools, which is every year that goes by, we're getting further behind on our capital expenditures because the revenue is not there to support it.
Right. Yeah, I realize that. Any other comments or questions on it? Okay, so we're going to the highway repairs and maintenance fund for the $416,000.
So this is the pavement management plan that we've just put out. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at it, but we've scheduled a lot of road repair work over the past few years. They haven't been covering any additional road repair money. So this is trying to get us headed in the right direction to cover the need for the capital plan. I mean, we could use 3 times this much, but this is a start.
What's our plan going forward? Because I know with what we're going to get for other money for maintenance repairs, you look about 700,000. But what are you going to do the following year? How are we going to get that money?
So I'm gonna try to allocate money in the budget like they used to do. Start getting money in there because the money you don't put into the roads, it costs that much more to repair them. Kind of like Larry's cruises, as we talked about. If you don't stick with the plan, it's gonna cost you more money in the long run.
Because again, I've voiced my concern that I think East Ridge Road has been mislabeled. I'd call it a major connector, not a minor connector. It's a north-south connector, just like 101 is. But that thing is up around $1 million. So we talked about repairing a complete road at once, but maybe we're going to have to go with portions of a road and repairs.
Yeah, I think that's on the following year list. I believe that
It
was
is, yes.
allocated for the following year. So, who knows where prices will be. The prices that we have, that Beta used, were definitely on the high side. Steve has been very good getting better pricing for us when we put the jobs out to bid. But again, Beta took a conservative approach when they put their cost in there. So, we believe with our plan and allocating, 120, 150,000, if not more per year on top of the chapter money, that, we can maintain the plan.
Now, is some of this money going to go to the road maintenance as well as the reconstruction of roads? Or how is this going to be set up?
I'll let Steve answer that part of it.
So in this plan, we have, it's not all reconstruction. Some of the roads are going to be, I don't know if you want me to use all the technical terms because not everybody realizes what they are, but some of the, like South School Street, it's called mill and pave, is basically we take 2 inches off and put 2 inches back. We're doing that kind of thing. Some of these roads that we're doing are, if you look at our pavement management plan, a lot of our roads need major reconstruction. They were never done the right way. So when we go to do them, we do them the right way. But not every road that we're going to do this year is major construction.
Hey, Steve, was Depot Road a mill and pave or was that total reconstruction?
That was total reconstruction.
Okay, just to give me an idea, so I understand.
That's a total reconstruction. The last few years, that's all we've done. Pleasant Street was a total reconstruction. Stoll Road was a total reconstruction because they're so bad. You can't, you can mill and pave them, but that's not the proper way to do it. So our philosophy is if we're going to do it, let's do it the right way. But we have quite a few streets that we're going to do if we get this money.
Do we have a list of the streets and all that stuff, Steve?
Yes, they're on the website for the town.
Okay.
under the pavement management plan, you can see this year's, next year's. We did three, we worked with Bill and Brian to come up with a 3-year plan because we feel that's reasonable. If you go out 5 years, sometimes you don't get the funding, and that's what's happened in the past. So we're trying to say that this is the 3-year plan and we will stick to the 3-year plan based on the funding.
And we used the same company, right? Or are we using somebody different?
No, we have to use the companies that are under bid, that are on.
Yeah, Marty, I think I forwarded that list to you. It came from Bill on like an Excel spreadsheet as well as the process.
Okay.
Words on that.
Hey, Ron, I can do this. No, the host has disabled screen sharing. I was gonna I just went to the website, pulled it up. I was gonna
Yeah,
show you.
actually, can we enable that screen share?
That
who's
must be- Who's the host? Is that Mary?
Mary, yeah, Mary should be able to enable it.
Yep, it should be all set.
All right, let's give this a try. Okay, you should all be able to see that now.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, good.
So this is dated, pretty recently, January 7th. So I'm assuming that is this, I guess I don't know if this is the order or it's just alphabetical order.
If you go down in the right-hand column, you'll see the roads that are scheduled for fiscal years.
Oh, I see.
Go down
that.
to Holt. Holt is a good example. It's alphabetical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit cut off, but over on the right-hand column, see the fiscal years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not cut off for me, so I'm sorry it's cut
Oh,
off for
okay.
you all. Maybe I can shrink it a little bit. Yeah, it says fiscal year 2022. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
so Hunter Ave is listed as fiscal year 2021. Did we do Hunter Ave?
What, pardon?
Steve, did we do Hunter Ave?
No, we're going in, if we get this 415,000 from the town, we're going in to do that whole development.
I see. So,
Hunter, Sibley, Birchwood, and Williams Passage.
gotcha. So that we could say that the fiscal year 2021 is what's going to be targeted with this money?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So, hey, Joe, this is Bill. So what the plan is that, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's going to start paving in the spring. Historically, what we've been doing is been using Chapter 90 money, which rough numbers is about $350,000 on a 10-year average. And DPW has been stretching that to do what they could with it, along with other commitments that we have. So this will allow us to start paving in the spring, which we historically don't do. And then when we roll into a new fiscal year, we'll have Chapter 90 money coming in. Again, it'll be about $350,000. So now we'll be in fiscal 22, and Steve can do some more paving in the summer and the fall as funds allow. So we're almost doing 3 times as much as we normally would do. And then one other thing, Steve. So again, correct me if I'm wrong. I know last year or so, to their credit, DPW has been going back and crack sealing and doing some of the maintenance issues on some of the roads that were recently paved. And I think that money is coming out of your operating budget, isn't it, Steve?
Yes. Come out of Chapter 90. Some of it has come out of Chapter 90, but it can typically come out of our operating budget.
And it all makes sense to me. Everyone in town knows we need the roads repaired and more of them. So it's great news for me.
Me also. Any other further comments? Okay, now go on to the 101, the increase in the, I guess, engineering fees or something. 72,000, Brian?
Correct. So that's the tip 101 South project. So the engineering costs came in higher. How we're spending some of our chapter money is covering the tip project. However, if we continue that process, we're going to take away from the roads, defeating what we're trying to do with the article just before it. So this is the money that's going to cover the town's portion of the engineering costs. The cost went, I believe, Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, but like from $7 million up to like $8.9 million now.
Yeah, this engineering study has been a moving target for what feels like 5 years. It makes you wonder if we're ever gonna, get it nailed down.
Are we still on the 2025 scheduled?
Last I knew, that was where we are. So that's why we need to start completing the engineering portion, so they can't keep bumping us.
Will the 72,000 complete the engineering process now with the increased fees?
I believe the 72,000 plus next year's chapter money, if I'm correct, would complete the process. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct.
Okay.
What happens when it gets to the state level? Your engineers, the state does not pay for engineering, it only pays for construction. So as engineers, they submit a plan, and when the state looks at it, that's why it's driving this cost, because they've made us add other things into here. It's now at 25% design. So when Boston gets hold of it, they make a lot of changes, which in turn requires them to go back and redo the engineering.
Well, we're glad when it's done, that's for sure.
It's up to,
What was the plan good for?
you're going to expend 400,000 to get an $8 million job in a couple more years.
Yeah, money well spent.
Nancy, did you say something? It's
I
good.
said, how long is the plan good for? Is there a time? Is this like, once they do this, is it good until the forever? Or does it expire?
I don't understand. What do you mean the plan? What, the engineering plan?
Yes.
The engineering plan they have 3 stages: 25% design, 75% design, and what they call complete, 100%. So we will move up very fast. They're actually working on the 75% as we speak. So within the next year, as Brian said, we will have paid for all of the engineering, and then the state will come in and do the work on their cost. So that's where the $8 million is. The town will expend 400,000 to get an $8 million job. So no, the engineering will not cost any more. It should be pretty straightforward now.
Okay. Any additional questions on the engineering cost? Glad when it's done, that's for sure. Okay, why don't we move on to get the right page here now, number 10, the accountant professional services.
Sure. So we have a new town accountant. Oh, new, she's been here over a year, just over a year. And there was a lot of stuff she's catching up on. So the workload here is more than what she anticipated. So she had an increase in her contract, and this is covering the contractual increase.
Okay. So in the future, like, we're gonna allocate about 105,000 to her. Account?
I think it's around 80,000 next year.
Oh, wait.
And there's $30,000 for the audit.
Okay, all right. Understand that. Any questions on?
All right, how many hours is that? Is that a 40 hour? Is that a full-time or is that a part-time?
It's a part-time, however, she's here 1 full day a week, but she comes in when the workload is here. I've seen her here Sundays. I've seen her here Fridays. You know, she does the job to make sure the job's done and done correctly.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, economic development, transferring the money out of the commission, is that how I understand it?
That is correct.
Why, I guess is the question.
So when I first came here, Deb Phillips kind of talked to me about this account. And in order to spend money from this account, it needs town meeting before you can spend any money from it. So how they were doing it was no longer correct. Her design is they can't spend without town meeting. So my thought is, I'm not going to go to town meeting to spend that type of money. We need to re-establish how this account gets set up. So I want to pull it out of here, put it into the advisory board, and then allocate it from the advisory board, or let it roll to free cash and then reallocate it out of next year's free cash into the correct means in order to do what it's meant to accomplish. Because right now, it doesn't do anybody any good. So why leave it there?
Brian, do you see any problems with it being in the advisory board fund, since that fund is supposed to be for unanticipated emergency reasons only?
Sure, and that's the one thing. So, you know, whether you guys think it's an emergency or a one-time thing or something of that nature. I mean, we also have the 50,000, you know, there's other funds hopefully that we could allocate from if we need to do small amounts. But if it's a big amount, you know, it's a one-time special thing. That is a concern. However, I'm looking at 5 months. If we don't use it, it rolls to free cash. Or we allocate the 200,000 left in free cash at annual town meeting. They'll take 75 out of that, establish this fund. I'm gonna get that money in free cash when your account rolls over anyways. So I can get it one way or the other.
Right, sure. What's the vision for how you want it to be set up then, if it's not a town meeting?
That's the tricky part. So I've got to talk to the auditor and Deb Phillips to see if there's a way that we can have it in and have Board of Selectmen, advisory, someone's control over, or a town administrator, someone's control over it so that it can be allocated for the purpose it's intended for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. It definitely has to be one of the elected bodies, Board of Selectmen preferably, that would have oversight. We want to have a vote on that. I personally, having been where we came from, would not want that in the hands of the town administrator, even though I obviously trust you.
Right.
But given our
Well, I
history,
would laugh, Joe.
given our recent history, I won't support that. So,
Yeah. Because again, we're getting ready to go before the board to purchase some signs for the town. So I didn't want to lose the money. I wouldn't mind it just going to the advisory board to hold it. And then at the town meeting next year, allocate it to the correct account with the selectmen authorizing the expenditure.
Yeah, that's one of the options, correct. Yep.
Hey, Ron, when this was originally set up.
Yeah.
It was $100,000 originally.
Right.
And about 50,000 of that was set aside with the intent of hiring a part-time planner. While the need still exists for that role, we just don't think we have the bandwidth right now to be able to afford to do that. So while we'd like to do it, you know, we're probably not going to be able to do it this year again. And then the balance of that was to be used for, you know, ongoing expenses that the Board of Selectmen would approve or disapprove. The sticky part came, we were told that was okay. And obviously for a couple of years, we expended money that way. But in fact, it required a town meeting vote. So there's an issue right now, as you know, for advertising, that's like $350. We're not doing a town meeting to spend $350. So there's a number of things that have been looked at. You know, we set up one revolving fund for economic development to deal with the banner program. So, you know, maybe that's an option. Maybe it's, you know, I haven't mentioned this to Brian, he's probably already thought of it. Maybe an option is that we actually set up in next year's budget a line item under the selectmen for economic development and put some revenue in there to be able to deal with those, you know, ongoing expenses like that. There's also some talk about setting up a special fund for matching grants. The question that everybody has is though, what's the mechanism to do that? Mass General law doesn't give you a lot of options as to how you can do that. So we're trying to sort through that. This was an idea that Brian came up with as a stopgap measure so that we could, you know, we, the town, could access that money, you know, on a short-term basis if we needed to. So.
Okay, I understand. The one thing question, Bill, I don't think the Economic Development Commission, I don't think has fenced off any of that 50K for potential town planner if we did have the bandwidth. Were we supposed to do that, or is that supposed to be what we're doing?
No, that was that really is something that is outside their scope.
Okay.
But that at the time, the year we did that, we were in pretty good shape on free cash.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a way that we looked at. We could grab $50,000 and use that to jumpstart that position with the anticipation that as revenues came along, we'd be able to put that position. And we were looking at it a part-time position, maybe regionalizing with another community.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's still a possibility.
Right.
But that was the thought process behind it. So it was supposed to be one and done. So that 50,000 was never really going to be available for economic development anyway.
Okay, understand. The only thing, Brian, I think you know, the words we just talked about, the rationale of why you're moving it, you should probably include that in the explanation for the special town meeting, because I think that's going to go over everybody's head.
Sure, we can,
Just modify the words or something to tell the why we're doing it, so.
Sure.
But, okay. Okay, any other questions or concerns on the move of the money? Okay, town accepted land donation, Brian.
so we've been approached by the Reedy family. They haven't wanted the property for, I don't know, 9 months, 10 months, and they've approached us to take it. The town has both properties on both sides through tax taking.
Yeah.
This property is right in the middle. So it kind of makes sense for us to take it this way. It's a lot easier than, spending money to take it in tax title.
Mhm.
And then plus we have 3 parcels together, maybe there's something we can do with it at that point in time.
Okay, I totally understand that. I agree with it. When are we going to go for land auction in this town with all the land we own?
Sure, I've already started scheduling out an Excel spreadsheet of all the town-owned properties. Having someone do the research, pulling the takings to find out how they were acquired, to make sure there's not conservation restrictions or other restrictions on them. And then take that list, give it to the assessor in the building department to get values and see what uses can be for them. So hopefully hopefully early May, something like that. I want to do it within 30 days of year end because they have a 30-day to pay us window once it closes.
Yeah.
So I need to have it in May so that we get our money in this fiscal year.
Okay, that sounds good. I've heard about the land auction coming up, but never went. Well, I totally agree with joining this land in with the adjacent parcels, so maybe have a better chance of selling the whole thing. So, any questions on this land donation? Okay, why don't let's see, pages are all out of. Okay, so that does it. I don't know if the fire chief came in at 7 or.
Oh, he's on. I don't know if anyone wants to have any more questions on the grant matching funds or the fire department. He's here to answer any questions if you have them. If not.
Let me start, Ron.
Okay, go ahead.
So Bob, I don't think we've ever had the pleasure of meeting, but I've been on the advisory board for quite a good number of years now, and way back when we didn't have the 24-hour schedules that we have now, and there was a big push for that. We revamped kind of way ambulance was serviced, and so we added to staff that year. We have increased overtime over the years, and with each chief that's come in, we seem never to get out of this hole where we're always behind on the fire budget. We're always running over on overtime. It never seems to be staffed correctly, and every time we add to staff, the promise is made that we'll be good. So you kind of inherited a long line of promises here, and I think all of us are just scratching our head as to why that particular department runs so much overtime, why the costs are always exceeding their budget, and then of course the ladder truck is just a part of that, another straw for the pile. So maybe just take a few minutes and give us your perspective.
The staffing, you're 100% right with all of it. Staffing's always been a problem. And this is a national trend. Volunteerism has dropped off. I've been working in this area for almost 40 years as a firefighter in Gardner, and then I was even on here back in the early 80s. And there were dozens of call firefighters, all living in town. You had no worries about getting 10 or 12 people on a call at any given day. That's not true anymore. The national trend is people just don't have time. There's a lot more training. Firefighters here go through the Mass Fire Academy. They become EMTs or paramedics. Tons of commitment, way more than in the past. And so our numbers have dropped. We have per diem people that help backfill shifts, but at the end of the day, we only have 11 people who live in Ashburnham that still respond to calls or even able to respond to emergency calls because everybody else lives far out. So staffing is a continual problem. Getting the people on to have at least one in-house was huge. That was very helpful, but in order to operate the ambulance, of course, you need 2 people. And for our needs here, 2 people would be optimal for 24 hours a day. They don't have to be full-time. They can be, we can create what they call a full-time equivalent position, which is filled by call members at, far less money per hour, no benefits, no overtime, to help curb all of this. So, we have to get there, and it costs money, and it's going to take time. It's a very large cultural change industry-wide, and we're not the only ones experiencing it.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay,
No, I'm good with the ladder truck. I think we went over that in detail.
yeah. Brian, just a question on process. Now, do you want us to vote on these articles tonight, or you want to wait till before the special town meeting, or do we even need to vote on them, or what? To approve them?
I'd like your recommendation. I'm not sure the process in town. This is new to myself, so if someone could mention how you guys normally do it, but I definitely would love your support for sure.
In the past, we would normally just take a vote to recommend we support or not support.
I wonder if we could take, unless somebody objects, take a vote on all of the articles together. Do we need each article separately?
I think we can do them as a group. We can just have a motion to recommend Articles 1 through 12 for the special town meeting.
Yeah.
Somebody to make that motion and someone to second it, if that's how we'd like to do it.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
So I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
So moved.
Okay, second it.
Okay.
All in favor, and I'll take a roll call on this. Ron Putnam is yes.
Joe Oliveira is yes.
Jamie Podgerfight, yes.
Nancy Fisher, yes.
Marty's just a guess.
Okay. So they're approved.
Thank you.
So I guess, again, what I'd like the advisory board members to show up 6:30 on the 22nd in the Briggs cafeteria. There will be a caucus town meeting going on at that time, but I don't think we'll interfere with that. We'll just stand aside and wait for the special town meeting to commence.
Ron, you can come and participate in caucus if you're a registered voter. And
Well,
we need 25 people for that to happen.
What time does it start, Bill?
6:30.
6:30.
Okay, I'll be there.
It's going to be in the
That's right.
cafeteria. And
Right.
unlike town meeting where we don't have a quorum, there is a quorum for caucus.
Oh,
Okay. It's 25 members, Bill?
Yeah, you have to have 25 registered voters.
Okay, well then that helps fill that requirement.
I'll have to go to the pub and get the people. No.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. All the people that showed up to speak to these articles and why they were put before us. I don't have any other comments or questions. Anybody have that? Or I'd make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Sure, I'll make a motion to adjourn the advisory board
Okay,
meeting.
seconded. So, all
Second.
right,
So that was Joe and Marty second.
again, thank you very much.
We do need a roll call on that as well.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay, Ron Putnam, yes.
Joe Oliveira, yes.
Jamie Podgerfight, yes.
Nancy
Marty's
Fisher,
just-
yes.
Marty's just guess.
Okay, good to go.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
All right,
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
good night.
Good night.